Friday news dump, Holden, Tambo, helmets, cracking jokes before we come on here. Now, what we normally do is just give you the news, and we try and help you from a DFS perspective. But, had brought up Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Tambo's telling me that JT Hayes told him something, and then Tambo's looking stuff up, and we got Mr. Universe, and we got Equinet. What is going on here, Tambo? Hello? Welcome to Friday. Everything's going to change before Sunday, except for these notes about the St. Brown family.
That's correct. Yes, we have lots of news. We'll get to it. There's lots of stuff that we don't know. There's things that we're going to have to speculate on. There's incentives. There's motivation factors. There's playoffs. There's all of these things coming up. But what won't change? Most of you would probably be able to put two and two together and notice that Amon-Ra St. Brown, who RJT Hayes once coined some guy named Amon-Ra St. Brown, you could put two and two together that maybe Equanimeous St. Brown for the Green Bay Packers, their matchup this weekend, is his brother. But did you know that John Brown, their father, happens to be a two-time Mr. Universe and a three-time Mr. World? That, as you said, Holden, my friend, will not change as far as news.
But that was the best name, too. So you got Amon-Ra, Equanimeous, and Osiris.
Osiris is his brother. Stanford University, 23 years old. Yeah. Yes.
That's John.
All this to say, you could stack them up this weekend in the game against each other, Equanimeous and Amon-Ra. But now you know why this guy is not just some guy named and why he's actually a stud. His dad is a two-time Mr. Universe. There you go.
Yeah, what happened to Equanimeous? He just never panned out.
He doesn't get a shot, right? You know, Rodgers likes his guys. He gives him a pass. If he drops it, he's done for the game. If he catches it, he gets a little bit more love. That's always been the case with MVS, Lazard, all those guys outside of Devontae Adams. And that's why he wanted to bring Randall Cobb back to start the season, if you remember.
Absolutely amazing. Okay, well, let me just give you a broad brush of the news, and then we can dive into everything we know at this point. Deontay Johnson activated. Let's see here. Ronald Jones out this week. Doubtful Braxton Berrios. We liked him last week. Tyler Huntley's going to get a start. Jared Goff is likely going to start. Aaron Rodgers is going to play. How long, we don't know. And then Andy Dalton starting. So let's just start with the Deontay news, Tambo. Deontay Johnson off the COVID list. I know that I was just talking to Hoop and Mangone. They're saying, Ray McLeod and Chase Claypool. Do we just throw those guys out of the player pool because Deontay's in there and he's actually a pretty good play?
Yeah, I think so at this point. I was actually more excited to play Ray. I think it was Ian Hartitz said it on Twitter last week. It was kind of funny that Chase Claypool just looks like the guy that makes every impossible throw into a great catch. And that's kind of what he does. But it's been tough coming from Ben Roethlisberger down the stretch. So moving off that, I think now it's almost a time to jam in Deontay. He's been good to me. He's the guy that Ben wants to go to. And now that he's back, it just makes all the world of difference in a spot where you know they're going to play to win. So keep going to him, get your 12 targets, whatever it might be, and then hope he does a little bit more with them this week than last.
Just some news came by. Shaq Barrett is out. He's got the COVID. So here we go. As Helmet said, that damn Antonio Brown gave the whole Bucs team COVID.
Yeah.
You hate to see it. You really do hate to see it, but Shaq Barrett's back. But that doesn't matter, right? Because Carolina stinks. So we're not too worried about rostering anyone from Carolina.
I agree. The more you think about that game, I think Holden, the decision is going to be based around the running back position and then deciding what to do with Gronk, right? We talked about a little bit pre-show, two things. So starting with the running backs, I guess, is obviously no Ronald Jones. So it's going to be Keyshawn Vaughn or Lev Bell. It sounds like it's going to be Lev Bell from the beat writers. So you have to make a decision there. Why not run Lev Bell out and just give him a shot, right? Keep it rolling. And then you've got the other conversation piece around Rob Gronkowski, who his incentives are quite large. I know there's going to be lots of incentives talked about this week, but 500,000 for like 80 yards, 81 yards, somewhere in that range, 500,000 for, I believe it's 5 or 6 catches, and then 500,000 for 3 touchdowns. I don't expect the latter to happen, but both of the formers could definitely be in play, even if it is just the first quarter or first half where Tom just feeds his boy to get him a quick $1 million. So I think that's the guy that you want to make a decision on, where one half of him hitting the bonus, getting the 100 yards that you need on DraftKings for the bonus, maybe a touchdown in there with 6 or 7 catches. That's quite a few points considering the position's quite weak this week. So I think that makes a lot of sense to go there as well.
Lev Bell looked pretty good. I'm going to be honest with you. He looked kind of spry. He's got fresh legs. I know he's old, but he's got Tom Brady throwing to him. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. And I think people will see, like a couple weeks ago, right? The Keyshawn Vaughn one play runs it for 55 yards for a touchdown. Sure. But I think, like you said, from just a perspective of, probably getting the full game, can even play down the stretch of the third and fourth quarter where the other guys will likely be held out. If he can keep rolling it out there and he's cheap enough, maybe people are scared to go there because of Vaughn being there still, all these factors. But as of right now, it looks like Lev Bell's a pretty good play.
Tom Brady has a $562,500 bonus hinging on that. If the Buccaneers average 5.35 yards per carry this season, he's going to get a $562,000 bonus. I didn't even know about that bonus. That's an interesting one. Yep. So they're at 4.3 yards per carry.
Just throwing to Gronk 10 yards at a time keeps that average up the whole first quarter, first half. And then
they got to run. They got to run.
I thought you were saying on a pass. Sorry.
No. Brady gets 562K plus if they can go above 4.3 yards per carry this week. That's a weird incentive, but here you go. Now we need Le'Veon Bell, right? He's like, Le'Veon, I need you to run for 5 yards a carry. Let's go.
Tom's going to be in there blocking this week to get those extra yards out of his running backs.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Tambo, we're joking about this, but like some of these incentives are legit, right? Yeah. Like these guys are going out there trying to make their money. And I think we already got Aaron Rodgers. He had to play like 72.5% of the snaps. And he gets like $100,000. There's just a million different incentives out there. But the big one's probably Cooper Kupp, right? Like he needs to get fed the ball this week. And you already mentioned Gronk needs it too.
Yeah, I was trying to look up the stats in the meantime, but Kupps are more record-based. Like I think I just saw it here. It's 136 yards shy of breaking Calvin Johnson's all-time yardage record. So I know he even was quite humble about it last week, talking about how it's unfair because guys like him get the extra week. So, you can't really count it without the asterisks, etc. But you can't tell me these guys don't want to get it. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. Like last week, the Ravens bracketed him out, kind of did the same thing they did to Devontae Adams. This is with Cooper Kupp. He had his worst Draftkings scoring game in the last 5 games, and it was 21.5. He still went like 6 for 95 and a touchdown in a game where they did everything to stop him. That's basically his complete floor. I don't expect that to be the same. It looks like I just saw you retweet it before we hopped on here. Some of the news out there. It looks like Jimmy G was back at practice. We were looking for Trey Lance. I'm not sure what their final plan will be in San Francisco, but I honestly think either of those guys can keep their team enough in the game to make it a bit interesting and go back there to your Stafford, Kupp, Odell type of stack when everyone's talking about the running game and Cam Akers. I think you could stack that game up and get a little bit of a back and forth there as well. Absolutely
Fascinating stuff that we have going on right now. Stephon Diggs needs 6 more catches to add $1.5 million total to his base salaries the next 2 years. Weird incentive. Somebody's going to be over. We're all going to overlook one incentive and it's going to hit. And we're just be like, oh shit, man. I wish I would have known about that one. Okay. So we got through Ronald Jones and Deontay Johnson. Braxton Berrios was very, very good to us last week. I mean, would you have considered playing him this week? It's just not looking good on him.
Did you say very, very good to us?
Very, very good. Did you know Sammy Sosa?
The dad, I thought it was the dad joke of the year. You and I always get some good dad jokes. That's why I had to check in on you there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he was very, very good to some people last week that played him at $3,700.
Oh, you know what?
35.
I just got shot. That. Yeah. I just got why you thought it was a dad joke because Berrios, Berry.
Correct. Come on now, Holden. I thought
must
you
have
had
been. Yes, that was subconscious.
We're supposed to be on the dad squad. Let's go.
I am on the dad squad.
Like the thing is there, I think there's definitely opportunity. We know what the Jets are going to do. It looks like Crowder's back though. So you could go to Crowder. I'm always good with him in full point PPR over on DraftKings. I think that could make some sense if you need to. Like I said, there's going to be a lot more plays that come up by Sunday. You guys are going to want to be with us here on Run Pure Sports. So subscribe if you haven't already. The big red button, bottom right corner. You can turn off the notifications if you want, but I highly recommend turning that on because when we do the Sunday morning off the chalk show this week, followed by the morning wood with Holden, Big T, and Hoop, you're going to want to be there for all of these updates and sort of the final stuff down the stretch. And then, of course, being over at Run Pure Sports up to lock with JSU, Holden, and JJ from the bet side. So, yeah, I'm with you there, Holden. I think somebody here could be valuable come Sunday.
Yeah, every morning, 8:45 Eastern time, 9:45 Tambo time, 6:45 my time. 8:45 Eastern is when the boys get going, and I turn that on. That's weekly viewing. It's necessary, and we go all the way up to lock, just like Tambo was talking about. Okay, next news story. Jared Goff is probable week 18. Now we're going to scoff at Goff. See what I did there? That was a dad joke. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is good without him, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is super sexy with him, man. I mean, he's 6'8" on DK this week, though. What do you want to do with St. Brown? Because I think that Goff news kind of gives him even more of a floor.
Yeah, I think it's good. Like you said, if he's that good, even with Boyle, as much as people wanted to talk down on him and the price has gone up, it's been repetitive now. What is it, 4 or 5 weeks in a row of putting up these stats? So again, on a week where there's going to be a lot of unknowns, even within some of the value that opens up, I think he's fine if you can land there and get him. 6'8" does seem steep, but like you said, especially with Goff back, it could be even more so. And in that game, even in the back and forth, he should just play all the way through. It's not like they're going to stop for any reason. So I think it makes a lot of sense at 6.8K.
I just got the Saints injury report. So let's see here. Teron Armstead, their left tackle, is out. That's big. Bradley Roby's out again. Cornerback. So that's a couple of big ones from that game. I don't know if it's anything that's going to keep you off of the Saints and the Falcons, because that game kind of matters for the Saints, Tambo.
Yep, they got to win there for sure, and it's a good matchup. We know what that matchup's all about. So all depends on how they want to play it. Like, obviously, it's always tough to decipher through Taysom versus Kamara. You got to pick your poison a little bit. Sometimes you could roll them both out. This is definitely a matchup against Atlanta where that could be valuable. Obviously, on the other side of that game, we're talking here, as always, from a DFS perspective, there is another incentive. This is not really, kind of injury related. We could talk about Pitts for a second. He had a hamstring on the Wednesday practice report. I didn't see the latest if you've got it, Holden, but he needs to get, 58 or 59 yards to beat the Mike Ditka record stemming back to 1961 for the most receiving yards for a rookie tight end. And that's pretty crazy to say, considering, and just to think about the prospect of Kyle Pitts in the future. I know it's just about this week and whatever, but man, the guy seemed like he had the worst season of all time, and it's going to be the rookie receiving tight end record that was set way back in 1961. You think about all the great tight ends that have come through. That's pretty incredible for someone that we just would say sucked on the season. And really, he came out with all that with a pretty bad quarterback as well.
Mark Ingram did not practice all week, so I don't know if that's going to factor in your decision-making with Taysom Hill, with Alvin Kamara in particular there. So that's just another piece of news. He's questionable, Ingram is, but if he's out, does that put Kamara in play for you in tournaments, or is it just there's too many variables with Hill under center?
Yeah, that's one of the things. I'm always okay with it, though. His price isn't too bad, 8,300. Again, the matchup against Atlanta, you can't really ask for a better spot. So I'm actually not against it. I hope if he's coming in lower owned, I like that, because you got to remember, too, again, no injury here, but we've talked kind of about all the news. It's just the news dump. It's not the injury dump. So I don't mind bringing this stuff up. But the JT stuff, Jonathan Taylor for 9,300, he's $1,000 more on DraftKings, should be pretty popular based on all the numbers that he has, right? He's got 266 yards to hit 2,000. He needs 2 touchdowns to hit 20. But looking back to last year, it was week 17 last year, obviously the extra week this year. Talked about this last night as well with JT Hayes. But just last year in week 17, the Colts were in the exact same spot against the exact same matchup. They played the Jags. They let Taylor run it 30 times for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think he's in a pretty good spot this week. But if you want to get a little bit different, you could either go back to old school, team jam him in, play Kamara with Jonathan Taylor, or you could pivot off of Jonathan Taylor and play Kamara up at the top, use that 1,000, disperse it elsewhere, and get yourself a little bit of a different build. It is a matchup against Atlanta, which should be good for a guy like Kamara. So especially if Ingram's out, would be even better at that point.
Just got the Titans, Texans. Not seeing anything here. No major news out of that one. Okay, let's get to the Packers. So Aaron Rodgers is going to start. Don't expect him to play more than a half. My question for you would be, is it something where we could target maybe A.J. Dillon, or is there just too much up in the air with the Packers against the Lions this week?
Well, that was good. I was going to ask you, like, I saw this report today and a little bit of conversation around this guy, Patrick Taylor. So the fact is obvious. So Jones is a little bit banged up. They don't need this game. They're going to start Aaron Rodgers just because he basically said, I want you to start me, but they can pull him at any given moment. So not touching that at all with him, Devontae, any of those guys. I really am interested in the running back situation. We just saw what Penny did to this Lions team, as well as many other running backs have done to this Lions team, mind you. So I'm interested in Dillon or Taylor. I want to see where the news flows, but do you think that they would, I think there's merit to wanting to save Dillon just as much as they do with Jones. Like, he's still important. He's a big back, heavy duty guy down the stretch. can really come in handy. And then if that injury somehow worsens for Aaron Jones going into the playoffs or coming towards the end, they would want to have Dillon fresh as well. So maybe this Patrick Taylor guy is an interesting guy at 4,000 even.
Oh, I think he's getting touches. He got 6 last week. I just don't think he's good. But just because you're not good doesn't mean you can't be rostered in DFS. We know that. There's a lot of bad actual football players, but I mean, Patrick Taylor
could be on volume. I don't know.
150.
That's what I'm
looking
at.
150.
Gotta have some action. Gotta have some action.
Yeah. All right. 150. You could convince me. Anything less like 149, no. But 150, yes. And again, he's been given some carries and he hasn't done much with them, but it's a small sample. I think real life football player, not very good, but he could get the opportunity. Andy Dalton starting for the Bears with Justin Fields on the COVID list. Does this mean anything to you? Has anybody really stepped up when our boy Andy Dalton's been in there?
Well, one guy that he made look pretty good. I remember the game when Fields went out and then Dalton came in, and all of a sudden we were all waiting on Darnell Mooney to do something. And it was I think it was like an 80-yard bomb that game. So Mooney's 5,900. I don't know, maybe a pivot off of Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you want to save all, $900, drop down, similar type of skill set, similar type of quarterback. Maybe Mooney could have a big game, but it's, whatever. It's against Minnesota, who's definitely got beat up over in the secondary. So I think there could be opportunity here. You could run even I'm not doing this, but I was thinking you could play like Dalton, Mooney, run it back with Jefferson. I still think Jefferson is interesting this week for Minnesota on the other side. So if you wanted to do that or just run it as a mini stack, I just prefer with Jefferson being so expensive to have some sort of quarterback situation there. And it would probably be the cheaper Andy Dalton throwing to Mooney, hope they connect a couple times, and then have Jefferson just plodding away on the other side. The other news may or may not come up, so I'll give it here and see what you think. But Akeem Hicks is out, and that's again the run stuffer that blocks and has stopped Dalvin Cook in the past. So if you actually wanted to have a pretty unique stack there, you could have Dalvin Cook across from Mooney as a secondary stack. And that's what I don't think many will think of. But if Cook has a big game or opens it up early, they'll have no choice but to pass it down the stretch. And Mooney could be the guy that makes the most of it.
No, I like that. That's an interesting one. I think that nobody's really going to be on Mark Andrews, even though, well, you know what? I don't want to say that because he's been so good lately. But if you're paying up for Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor, I don't know how you're going to cram them. But Brett Hundley's in there again. And Andrews has just continued to smash, Tambo. We talked about Gronk, right? I mean, maybe people are looking at Gronk if they are going to pay up. How are you not looking at Mark Andrews?
Yeah, with Tyler Huntley back in there, I think that's one where he'll get some ownership just because people saw what happened the last time out. It was actually against the Packers when obviously it had that huge game. I definitely think it makes a lot of sense. If you look at some of the numbers, they're crazy out there for him. He's had a pretty great season. In the last 4 games, it's like 85 yards was his worst. The other 3 games were well over 100. He's the guy that they target. It's sort of been a safety blanket when Huntley's been there. Even when Josh Johnson, was in there with him, he was targeting him as well. So I just think it's a good spot to go to. And the fact that he's pricey makes it tough, but it is a must-win spot. And this is what I said last night too with JT Hayes. You got to remember 7,500. I'm just treating Mark Andrews as a wide receiver. I would literally be willing to still use him in the flex. And you just have to put it in your mind that he's the wide receiver 1, not Hollywood Brown. So you're just making that decision. Put a cheap tight end in that you were going to play anyway. And if you land on Mark Andrews, I think he's fine. If he gets 10 targets here, 120 yards and a touchdown, it's a pretty damn good day. And someone that you should be able to rely on to get enough targets and stuff. The last game he had that was not the greatest was against the Rams where Ramsey was put on him and basically locked him down. I don't expect that to be the case here at all against Pittsburgh. I don't think they have anybody that can lock him down. So I think he's a good play in this game, and the price that's up there should make for some lower ownership.
Andrews, Gronk, Pitts. These are the big 3 tight ends we've been talking about today.
Top for Andrews, sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Gronk and Pitts. That'll be interesting to see how people attack the tight end position. That's all we got right now, Tambo. I don't think there's anything else to really force right now. Damian Harris, questionable. He's questionable every single week. Rex Burkhead got the extension. They love Rex Burkhead there. The Saturday night game with the Cowboys and the Eagles, if you're playing that one, Tony Pollard's out. We'll see what they even do with Zeke. So that could be an interesting thing. There's just, remember week 17 last year and the year before that and the year before that, and then mix in some massive COVID issues. And that's what we have for week 18 this year, Tambo.
Yeah, pretty much the same. And also I had to look it up. There is no Mr. Universe this year. So to recap and pass it out, It's a different thing now. It's not called that. So we don't know who the next Amon-Ra St. Brown will be in the future, Holden. But now we do know that Amon-Ra St. Brown's father is a 2-time Mr. Universe champion.
I mean, it's good to hear. It's good to know that now, right? It's good to know.
Now we know. Now the pieces connect.
8:45 in the AM Eastern Time. Tambo, AP, JT. That'll lead into the Morning Wood, Hoop, Big T, myself, and that will lead into our Up to Lock show, the final countdown. JSU, JJ from the bet side, who I think has had about $65,000 worth of hits in the last 5 or 6 weeks. And myself will do that too. Helmet, great job behind the scenes. Tambo, always good to work with you, buddy. And Helmet, it is time for you to get us out of here.